In today's video, I'll be recapping some of the most chilling prophecies about World War that I've shared on this channel. Just 2 months ago, most people thought my videos were filled with predictions that could never possibly happen. But looking at the state of the world right now, I'm honestly starting to worry that some of these prophecies might actually be coming true. The content in this video was uploaded here many months ago, so if you're skeptical, you can always go back and check my earlier videos for yourself. The prophecy of the man from the future. In early November 2010, the Japanese online community was caught off guard by a strange phenomenon that emerged on the 2-channel forum. This is one of the largest and most influential forums in Japan. On this online platform, people could freely share opinions and discuss any topic, from daily news to the wildest conspiracy theories. But few could have imagined that a single small post could capture the attention of the entire online world. That post was unlike any story that had ever appeared before. The author claimed to be a time traveler from the year 2062. He insisted that he was not an ordinary person, but a messenger from the future. The reason for his presence in 2010, he said, was to carry out an important investigative mission. However, he did not specify what that mission was. He merely hinted that his true purpose was connected to the safety of a great many people. The seriousness of his writing style and demeanor aroused curiosity among many forum members. Some considered it a prank or a clever attempt to attract attention. Others began to wonder if this might actually be a genuine warning from the future. Whether true or false, the post quickly spread across the site, drawing tens of thousands of views in a very short time. At the end of his post, he left a strange code, like a password or an encrypted riddle. He stated that this text was advice for modern humans, and whoever could decode it would understand the message he wished to convey. After hours of debate, the forum members finally managed to crack the mysterious content. The message was, "Escape to the mountains." This warning left many people confused. Some laughed it off, believing it was just another online hoax, but there were also those who could not shake a sense of unease about what might soon happen. In 2010, most Japanese internet users remained indifferent to prophecies about time travel, while strange stories of visitors from the future would occasionally appear on forums like 2channel. Most people saw them as little more than entertainment or fabricated tales to relax with after work. Yet, everything changed on a fateful day. On the morning of the 11th of March, 2011, Japan was plunged into horror as an unprecedented earthquake struck off the northeastern coast. The quake reached a magnitude of 9.0 on the Richter scale, becoming the largest ever recorded in Japanese history. Immediately afterward, massive tsunamis swept away everything in their path. Hundreds of towns, villages, and industrial zones along the coast were devastated. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their homes. Images of destruction and seas of white water flooded the news. As Japan struggled to recover from the catastrophe, many people suddenly remembered a detail they had previously overlooked. It was the mysterious warning from the self-proclaimed 2062. That seemingly meaningless phrase suddenly became frighteningly relevant because in the recent disaster, only those who made it to higher ground had a chance of survival when the tsunami struck. After this event, the Japanese online community began to reconsider the entire story of the man from 2062 with a completely new perspective. Numerous posts, discussions, and analyses appeared on forums, with many suggesting that the prophecy, "Escape to the mountains," was in fact a precise prediction of the earthquake and tsunami disaster that no one could have foreseen. The name 2062, once just a small internet mystery, now became a hot topic attracting the attention of the media. However, just as the online community was ablaze with debate over this man's predictions, 2062 completely vanished without a trace. His silence lasted for many months, leading many to believe that it would end as just another fleeting internet phenomenon. But everything changed in July 2011. The 2062 account suddenly reappeared. This time, he maintained the same calm and mysterious demeanor as before. 2062 answered several questions from internet users. Some questions related to future events, but he often dodged them or only replied in vague terms. When asked about his true purpose, 2062 only emphasized that he was here to carry out a special investigative mission of great importance. What caught the most attention, however, was the message 2062 left before leaving the forum. He declared that he would have to go but would return in April 2016. He emphasized that, at that time, a major event would take place and advised everyone to prepare themselves. After this note, 2062 once again disappeared. The Japanese online community fell back into a state of anticipation, mixed with curiosity and skepticism. Some people believed, but many thought this was just a joke that had run its course. Yet, time passed more quickly than many expected. Just as promised, in April 2016, 2062 appeared again on the forum. Strangely, only a day before 2062 posted again, Japan was struck by a major earthquake in Kumamoto Prefecture. This event immediately brought back memories of the Great Event, warning that 2062 had mentioned back in 2011. The atmosphere on the forum became more lively than ever. Thousands of comments flooded in within a short time. During this appearance, 2062 did not answer as many questions as before. He simply stated that he would have to leave again but would return on May 17 of the same year. This message once more stirred feelings of suspense and anxiety within the online community. In another strange twist, just one day before the scheduled return of 2062, on May 16, 2016, a small earthquake occurred in Ibaraki Prefecture. Though not as severe as previous disasters, this coincidence only strengthened the online community's belief in the man from 2062. As the warnings and predictions of 2062 garnered more and more attention, people began to pay closer attention to the information he left about the future of humanity. Among these, some predictions caused widespread anxiety about the fate of the world in the coming decades. According to what 2062 revealed, before 2030, the world would face an unprecedented, large-scale conflict. Everything would begin with complex, drawn-out disputes in Asia. The situation would escalate rapidly, forcing numerous countries to go to war. The list of combatants would not only include Asian nations, but also the United States, Russia, and several European countries. What surprised many most was that in this Third World War, nuclear weapons would not be the primary tools of destruction as people had long feared. Instead, the parties involved would use chemical weapons, resulting in devastation no less severe than atomic bombs. The toxins would spread through the air, leaving lasting consequences for generations. In the chaos of war, many countries would be wiped entirely off the map. Japan, too, would nearly vanish in the fire and ashes of this global war. As the world emerged from this nightmare, a new superpower would rise stronger than all the rest: India. The population of this nation would explode past 5.5 billion, making it the new center of global scientific and technological progress. India would not only lead in terms of population, but would also surpass others in technology, resources, and innovation. They would invent space energy, a technology that allows energy to be harvested directly from space via satellites, thereby eliminating any reliance on oil and traditional mineral resources. Although these prophecies remained vague at the time he spoke of them, now we are gradually beginning to see the scenario of world war coming into view, and the consequences, indeed, would be catastrophic. After the war, the global climate would fall into chaos, with natural cycles completely disrupted. Prolonged pollution would devastate both marine and terrestrial ecosystems. Human genetics would gradually change, resulting in serious health and adaptability problems for future generations. One of the most obvious effects would be that people would no longer be able to eat seafood or consume alcoholic beverages. Even a small mistake in daily life could lead to serious health consequences, even threatening one's life. Faced with an increasingly harsh environment, millions of people would be forced to move into underground cities deep beneath the Earth's surface. Meanwhile, those with financial means would opt for modern sky cities, where life would be almost entirely separated from the polluted ground below. Under the impact of these new living environments, human society would fall into a prolonged state of crisis. People would gradually become more lethargic. Birth rates would plummet, while the population aged rapidly. Nursing homes would spring up everywhere, divided into various tiers to serve different income classes. The wealthy could enjoy high-end care, while the poor would only receive minimal support. Yet alongside those difficulties, medicine would make tremendous strides. Thanks to advancements in nanotechnology and artificial intelligence, people would begin to implant superchips into their bodies. These chips could monitor all health indicators, automatically detect and heal injuries, and even allow users to communicate via telepathy within a 50-meter radius. As a result, language barriers between different peoples would gradually disappear. These predictions paint a future for humanity that is dazzling in terms of technology, yet filled with ethical and social challenges. For many, the story of 2062 is not simply a warning, but a reminder of each person's responsibility for the shared future of the world. The prophecy of Jeane Dixon on World War. In reality, belief in the mystical has long been woven into the lives of many great civilizations across the world, from Asia to Europe, and especially in America during the 20th century. Even as science advanced rapidly and rational thinking gained ground, many people still chose to believe in prophecies. In modern American history, there was a remarkable woman whose name became forever associated with predictions that shook public opinion. Her name was Jeane Dixon. Some called her the #1 psychic of 20th century America. She was famous not only for personal forecasts, but also for her sweeping predictions about politics, war, and the fate of nations. Jeane Dixon foretold the destinies of several American presidents, the shocking event of John F. Kennedy's death, and even the rise of new superpowers in the coming century. Her abilities led many to believe that some people are simply born with a sixth sense. On a January morning in 1942, America's fresh air was still heavy with the shadows of war. At an upscale beauty salon in the heart of the city, Carole Lombard, one of Hollywood's most beloved and celebrated actresses at the time, walked in with her signature confidence and radiant charm. Carole was a familiar face to millions of fans. She often graced magazine covers and was seen as a symbol of beauty and success in her era. That day, as Carole waited for her turn, a middle-aged woman with a worried face approached her. It was Jeane Dixon. She was no stranger to high society, as her reputation for foretelling the future was already known among the elite. Jeane Dixon gazed at Carole for a long moment, then gently told her she had a powerful feeling that danger was near. Dixon warned Carole to absolutely avoid flying for the next 6 months, or else something tragic might happen to her. Carole heard the warning with a gentle smile. She thanked Dixon politely, but did not truly believe it. She thought it was all just a coincidence, or simply the excessive worry of a superstitious woman. In her mind, Carole was focused only on her work and upcoming film projects. Not long after, on the 16th of January, 1942, she boarded a TWA flight to return home after a defense fundraising event. But then, the unthinkable happened. The plane encountered trouble as it flew over the mountains of Nevada. In that fateful moment, the pilot lost control and the aircraft crashed into a mountainside at terrifying speed. All 22 people on board were killed, including Carole Lombard. This tragedy stunned the nation and left a deep wound in the hearts of her fans. When the media began to investigate the circumstances surrounding the crash, many recalled the strange warning Jeane Dixon had given Carole just days before. Gradually, stories about Dixon's extraordinary gift began to spread more widely than ever. For many, Carole Lombard's death was not only a heartbreaking accident, but also a clear mark of Dixon's prophetic abilities, a woman who seemed able to see what was yet to come. Throughout her career, Jeane Dixon was not only famous with the public, but also left a deep imprint on America's political history through her forecasts about top leaders. Her presence at major events was more than a mere footnote. At times, she became a turning point no one expected. One of the most talked about stories was her connection with President Franklin Roosevelt. The first time she was invited to the White House was in 1944, during Roosevelt's 4th term as president. At that time, his health had deteriorated badly, though this was a closely guarded secret, known only to his closest medical team. During their meeting, Jeane Dixon looked President Roosevelt in the eye and predicted that he would not finish his term. She said he had less than 6 months to live. Upon hearing this, Roosevelt showed no concern, perhaps due to his life experience, or perhaps because he did not fully believe in the supernatural. But reality unfolded just as she said. On the 12th of April, 1945, Franklin Roosevelt died suddenly of a cerebral hemorrhage. After Roosevelt's death, Jeane Dixon amazed many again by predicting who would succeed him as president, Harry Truman. When Dixon made this prediction, Truman was just a little-known senator. But only months later, he became President of the United States, leading the country through a tumultuous period in history. This only strengthened the public's belief in Dixon's ability to see the future. Dixon's influence extended beyond American politics. She left her mark in Europe as well. In 1945, when British Prime Minister Winston Churchill visited America, he had a private meeting with Jeane Dixon. At the time, Churchill was at the peak of his prestige after the Allied victory in World War II. Almost everyone believed he would continue to lead Britain for years to come. Yet, Jeane Dixon stated that Churchill would not be re-elected as Prime Minister in that year's election. This prediction surprised many and was dismissed as fantasy, but the truth proved her right. Churchill lost the election immediately after the war. However, Dixon also added that he would return to politics, and, in fact, only a few years later, Churchill once again became Prime Minister. Looking back, this string of predictions about presidents did more than boost Dixon's reputation. It led many to ponder the limits of human knowledge. Even though science still cannot fully explain such phenomena, Jeane Dixon's influence on American presidents is something no one can deny. As she entered the later stages of her life, Jeane Dixon's predictions reached beyond specific political figures or isolated events. She turned her attention to the fate of the world, spending more time recording her visions for the future of humanity. In 1971, she published The Call to Glory. In that book, Jeane Dixon plainly warned that in 2020, the world would face a great upheaval. She described it as an apocalyptic event, something mankind would not be able to foresee. Interestingly, Jeane Dixon did not state outright that this would be a global war, a devastating pandemic, or a massive natural disaster. She left open the possibility that it might be a fierce conflict between nations, or perhaps the spread of disease, or even a symbolic showdown between good and evil. When the world entered 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic, many people were startled, thinking back to Dixon's warning. Though everyone interpreted her words differently, many agreed that what Dixon sensed nearly half a century earlier still carried a haunting power that defies explanation. But Jeane Dixon did not stop at 2020. In her later book, My Life and Prophecies, she continued to emphasize another turning point, the year 2025. Dixon predicted that the world would witness a major conflict between two great powers, China and Russia, and she believed that China would ultimately emerge victorious. Interestingly, the number 2025 appears not only in Dixon's predictions, but is also mentioned by many other modern prophets as an important milestone for humanity. This has made the outlook for 2025 even more unpredictable, and has captured significant attention from the international public. From a historical perspective, our Earth has gone through countless great upheavals, from catastrophic earthquakes and volcanic eruptions to events that completely changed the course of civilizations. Looking back at geologic or human history, the emergence of prophets who predicted major events does not seem entirely unreasonable. In a world still full of mysteries beyond science's reach, some people may simply be more sensitive, better able to sense unusual signals, or connect with layers of information no one else perceives. When we reflect on the journey of Jeane Dixon and stories of those who foresee the future, one thing becomes clear. No matter what upheavals lie ahead, and no matter how many unprecedented challenges the world must face, humanity has always found a way to overcome hardship, especially when we stand together and help one another. History has shown, time and again, that in our darkest moments, the power of faith and community spirit remains the strongest foundation for mankind to rise, rebuild, and move forward from loss. The Great European War in the prophecies of Nostradamus. Nostradamus, the famous French seer, once made a prediction that has left the world uneasy when he spoke about the year 2025. In his mysterious verses, he described a great war breaking out in Europe, leading to a dramatic decrease in population. The images Nostradamus painted were of bloody battles and shaking earth, prompting readers to envision a continent plunged into chaos and suffering. Today, when we look at the volatile geopolitical landscape of Europe, especially since the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine conflict in 2022. Many believe that this prophecy is gradually coming true. The ongoing war has already claimed tens of thousands of lives, plunged Europe into a severe energy crisis, and fueled rising tensions between Russia and the NATO bloc. Some scholars who specialize in the study of Nostradamus believe that he foresaw a war that could spread beyond the borders of just two countries, potentially drawing in multiple nations and even leading to a global conflict with the looming threat of nuclear weapons. Yet, Nostradamus' predictions have always been cloaked in ambiguity. He never specified which countries would be involved in the war, nor did he point to any particular cause behind such a catastrophe. This vagueness has led many to be skeptical, arguing that his forecasts can easily be interpreted in various ways to fit almost any conflict that has occurred in Europe. For instance, the clashes in the Balkans or the economic tensions among EU member states have also been compared to his prophetic verses. Nevertheless, in today's climate, where Europe continues to show so many signs of instability, Nostradamus' prophecies still give people reason to reflect and worry. Geopolitical analysts warn that 2025 could become a pivotal moment when tensions might escalate into a much larger conflict, especially if diplomatic efforts fail to produce the desired results. Believers in Nostradamus often point out that he accurately predicted several major wars in history, most notably World War II. However, scientists and historians are quick to note that Europe itself has long been the epicenter of countless conflicts throughout history. For this reason, any prophecy about war on the continent always carries the potential to become reality, whether it is based on foresight or not. The Great European War in the prophecies of Baba Vanga. Among Baba Vanga's most haunting prophecies, perhaps none has caused as much global anxiety as her warning about a major war breaking out in Europe in 2025. According to her accounts, this would be a brutal conflict that could lead to a sharp decline in Europe's population, with cities left in ruins and millions losing their lives. For those who believe in this prophecy, it might signal the beginning of doomsday, the kind of scenario Baba Vanga spoke about in her final years. The sense of unease only deepens when you realize how eerily her prediction aligns with what Nostradamus once wrote about a great war on the continent. In today's world, with rising geopolitical tensions, a prolonged conflict in Ukraine, ongoing instability in the Middle East, and fierce competition between superpowers, many are left wondering, is the world closer than ever to a new world war? To better understand this prediction, it's important to consider the context Baba Vanga described. She often spoke of dark forces that could ignite conflict between nations. Although she never offered a specific cause, her believers suggest that such a war could stem from resource disputes, like oil or clean water, or the rise of extremist movements. Skeptics, however, argue that her prophecy is far too vague and could apply to almost any period of instability in European history. Will 2025 really mark the arrival of a new catastrophe? Or is this simply another symbolic warning, as with so many other predictions? Looking at it realistically, a major war in Europe would trigger the largest military mobilization since World War II. NATO currently commands over 3.5 million service members, with the majority of advanced weaponry and technology provided by the United States. Meanwhile, Russia still holds the world's largest nuclear arsenal, with nearly 6,000 warheads, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. If a true conflict were to erupt between these great powers, the consequences would reach far beyond casualty numbers, affecting the global economy and environment on a massive scale. Many military experts warn that 21st century warfare would depend heavily on advanced technologies, artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, and autonomous weapons, factors that could make the destruction surpass anything humanity has ever seen. Behind all those numbers and predictions lies the fear of ordinary people. It's all too easy to picture Paris, Berlin, or Warsaw left in ruins. History has already seen more than 40 million Europeans perish during World War II. Should a modern war erupt with nuclear weapons involved, the cost could be even more devastating. Right or wrong, Baba Vanga's prophecy remains a stark reminder of how fragile peace really is, and of the true price of war. As of now, the possibility of a great war in Europe in 2025 remains an unanswered question. Analysts around the world continue to monitor every hotspot, from the Russian-Ukrainian border to the Iran-Israel conflict, searching for any sign of a crisis that could spiral into global conflict. Whether this prophecy comes true or not, it has already caused millions to worry deeply about their own future and the fate of the entire world. The beginning of Doomsday. Among Baba Vanga's most controversial predictions, her prophecy that Doomsday would begin in 2025 has left a lasting mark on the minds of millions. According to her, this year would mark the start of a series of events that could gradually bring about the collapse of modern civilization, even though humanity itself, she said, would not disappear completely until the year 5079, when an unimaginable cosmic event would end all life on Earth. The combination of this prophecy with warnings about war and natural disasters has fueled deep anxieties about an unpredictable future. But what exactly did Vanga mean by Doomsday? Was it a vision of unavoidable destruction, or merely a warning for humanity to change before it's too late? That question takes us on a mysterious journey, where the line between truth and legend becomes thinner than ever. For centuries, the idea of the end of the world has appeared in the Bible, in the writings of the ancient Maya, and deep in the collective consciousness of humanity. In modern times, events like the Cold War with its nuclear shadow, or today's global climate crisis, have brought that fear vividly back to life. Baba Vanga spoke of this prediction in her final years, as she witnessed the collapse of the Soviet Union and political instability everywhere. Many have recalled that in her dreams, she often saw visions of blackened skies, quaking earth, and cities reduced to ashes. Yet, Vanga never specified what would trigger this chain of disasters. From a scientific perspective, Doomsday can take many forms, from a large-scale nuclear war to environmental catastrophe, or even a cosmic event like an asteroid collision. The Global Catastrophic Risk Institute at Oxford has listed a series of threats that could bring about the collapse of human civilization, including runaway artificial intelligence, global pandemics, and irreversible climate change. Even a single nuclear war between superpowers like the US and Russia could produce more than 150 million tons of smoke, blanketing the atmosphere and causing a nuclear winter that would drastically lower global temperatures for years. Agriculture would collapse, famine would spread, and billions could die. It's also possible that new viruses, far more deadly than COVID-19, could cause the world's healthcare and economic systems to crumble in a very short time. The human stories behind doomsday predictions always give us pause. It's hard to imagine cities like New York, Tokyo, or London suddenly plunged into chaos by war or plague. History has already seen tragic chapters, like the Black Death in Europe, or the atomic bombings of Hiroshima, each a reminder of just how vulnerable humanity is in the face of disaster. Baba Vanga's prophecy seems to echo our deepest fears of the end, not just physical destruction, but the collapse of our values and will to survive. Still, is 2025 truly the beginning of doomsday? Many scientists say there is no concrete evidence that such a catastrophe will happen this year. Yet, real dangers persist. Climate change is becoming more severe, with global temperatures predicted to rise above the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold in the coming decade, while cyber attacks on critical systems are also increasing. Some people have even linked Vanga's prophecy to the rare planetary alignment occurring in 2024 to 2025, but scientists maintain that the gravitational effects of these planets are far too weak to cause any major events on Earth. What stands out in Baba Vanga's prophecy is that it does not completely shut the door on hope. She once spoke of a new light emerging after the darkness, suggesting that humanity could still survive disaster if we learn to unite and change. This is also the core message of many modern philosophies about sustainable development, global cooperation, and the ongoing effort to build a safer world. The prophecy of doomsday beginning in 2025, therefore, remains an unsolved mystery. Only time will tell whether it is a warning to wake up humanity or merely a haunting vision from history. In the meantime, scientists, governments, and people everywhere continue to work to reduce global risks, from cutting emissions to developing defense systems against asteroids. What do you think? Could 2025 truly mark the beginning of doomsday? Or is it just a wake-up call for humanity to look back and change before it's too late? The Prophecy of World War I-II by Alois Erlmeyer. Alois Erlmeyer, a German prophet renowned for his visions of the future, once gave all of Europe reason to reflect with his predictions about the possibility of a new world war in the 21st century. According to his descriptions, it would all begin with an event that seemed almost insignificant, taking place in the Balkans, a region with a long history of upheaval. At the time, Europe was still full of hope for peace. People spoke the word shalom as a last glimmer of hope in an increasingly tense atmosphere. However, these calls for peace would not be enough to stop the undercurrents of conflict. Everything changed in an instant when an assassination occurred in the Balkans. According to Erlmeyer, 2 hired killers were sent to murder a high-ranking figure. One was a short, dark-skinned man, and the other was tall, with light-colored hair. The sudden death of this figure not only shook the region but also became the spark that set off war, spreading across Europe in a single night. Immediately after, large military forces from the east began pouring across the borders. Erlmeyer described 3 powerful armies advancing into Europe, sweeping through Belgrade, passing through Italy and Germany, and then heading for the Rhine River. Bustling cities like Frankfurt were reduced to ruins by bombs. The Rhine Valley, once peaceful and fertile, now became a target for relentless airstrikes. In his prophetic vision, Erlmeyer also saw a new kind of weapon he called the Yellow Sandstorm, a deadly dust released from airplanes, turning the land from the Black Sea to the North Sea into a dead zone where no living creature or plant could survive for an entire year. Many researchers believe he was referring to chemical or poisonous gas weapons, the kind that had already sown terror during the First World War. Erlmeyer could not say exactly how long this war would last, but in his prophecy, the number 3 appeared repeatedly. It could be 3 days, 3 weeks, or 3 years. Whatever the time frame, the consequences would be far beyond anything anyone who had lived through peaceful times could imagine. As Western armies, including American forces, struggled to push the invaders back at the Rhine, many major cities had already been destroyed, and millions were forced to flee in panic, leaving everything behind. Erlmeyer even envisioned scenes of farmers still sitting around playing cards in small roadside taverns, unaware that, in just a moment, foreign troops would be standing outside their windows. In the end, what Erlmeyer saw was only a fragment of the unease that humanity has always carried. The question of the future, the fate of the world in a global war, remains unanswered, serving as a powerful reminder of the fragility of peace and the true value of these calm and ordinary days we so often take for granted. The Prophecies of Monk Daeon Miki. Daeon Miki was born in 1972 in Kyoto, into a family with a long line of Buddhist monks. In Japan, it is entirely normal for monks to have families, so Miki's childhood was never lacking in warmth. He grew up in a home where the discipline and tranquility of Buddhism blended with the gentle care of his parents. Even as a child, Miki stood out for his politeness, empathy, and a thoughtfulness beyond his years. But when he was only 5, Miki began to experience things that few could understand or believe. One night, as the household slept, he suddenly awoke after hearing someone call his name in the silence. Then, he clearly felt an icy hand grab his leg and pull him off the bed. Terrified, he sat up, looked around, but saw no one. From that night on, his life began to change. He realized he could see things others could not. Faint silhouettes of the departed, quietly wandering in the dark, unseen by anyone else. His experiences didn't stop at seeing spirits. Miki developed another ability that surprised even himself. He could smell a strange scent, impossible to describe, like a sign of impending death. His first experience with this happened during a family meal as a child. Suddenly, amid familiar dishes, Miki noticed a cold, unpleasant smell filling the house. After quietly observing, he discovered the scent came from his beloved father. Though just a boy, Miki gathered his courage and asked a question that seemed nonsensical. "Dad, do you want to see a doctor tomorrow?" The question baffled the family, and his mother quickly scolded him for saying something so unlucky. But just a few days later, his father was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Although doctors said he had only 6 months to live, thanks to the family's love and care, Mickey's father lived for another 2 years. That event convinced Mickey that his abilities weren't simply the product of a child's imagination. He began to believe he could sense things from the invisible world, and sometimes this could help him warn or protect loved ones from danger. After predicting his father's illness, monk Dayon Mickey began to spend more time observing and listening to his own spiritual experiences. He learned that he didn't always see spirits, but the smell of death often appeared at particular moments, especially when someone was about to leave this world. He realized he wasn't alone in this strange sensitivity. Mickey once read about a famous case at a nursing home in America, where a cat named Oscar had a unique gift. Normally indifferent to people, Oscar would suddenly cuddle with a patient, and the nurses knew that patient would likely pass away within a day. According to staff records, Oscar correctly predicted the deaths of at least 25 people. Oscar's story strengthened Mickey's belief that a sense of impending death truly exists, just not everyone can detect the sign. One time, while browsing in a used bookstore in the city, Mickey suddenly noticed the scent of death around him. He quietly observed those nearby and realized it was coming from an elderly man standing silently by the shelves. Mickey hesitated, unsure whether he should speak up, since telling a stranger about an ill omen is delicate and could cause unnecessary distress. As he was deciding, the old man approached and quietly asked, "What are you looking at?" Mickey, gathering his courage, gently replied, "You look tired. I think you should see a doctor just to be safe." The old man was slightly surprised, then smiled and answered, "Thank you for your concern, but I don't need to see a doctor anymore." With that, he left the shop and disappeared into the crowd. Only later, when the man never returned, did Mickey realize he might have just encountered a soul no longer of this world. He believed the spirit lingered near the shop for a short time, and it was the special scent that allowed him to sense its presence. From a Buddhist perspective, Monk Mickey explains that when someone dies, their soul does not immediately depart this world. The 49 days after death are a period when the soul remains, facing its final challenges before entering a new life in the endless cycle of rebirth. He believes that during this stage, some souls choose to stay near familiar places, and only those with special abilities like his can perceive them. These strange encounters strengthened Mickey's belief that life doesn't end with death, but simply shifts to another state. During a trip to India to deepen his Buddhist understanding, Dayon Mickey had an experience he would never forget. His journey took him to Rajgir, one of Buddhism's 8 holy sites. There, by chance, he met an Indian man fluent in Japanese, who had lived and studied in Japan for many years and now ran a large cattle ranch outside the city. During their conversation, the ranch owner told Mickey about a very special cow. Whenever he spoke Japanese, this cow would approach and sometimes even shed tears, something that moved everyone who saw it. Mickey was intrigued and agreed to visit the ranch. As soon as they entered the cattle area, the owner called out in Japanese, "There's a Japanese visitor here!" Immediately, among dozens of grazing cows, only one ran straight toward them. Mickey approached quietly, watching its every move, then bent down and gently asked in Japanese, "Were you Japanese in your previous life?" Astonishingly, the cow seemed to understand. Tears welled up in its eyes, and it nodded. That moment left Mickey speechless. He stood before the cow, sensing that it was not simply an animal, but a being carrying memories from a previous existence. Questions flooded his mind. Who had this person been? What had they experienced? Why had they been reborn as a cow? Mickey looked into the tearful eyes and softly asked, "Do you still remember your past life?" Miraculously, the cow nodded again. Overcome with emotion, Monk Mickey began chanting the Lotus Sutra on the spot, hoping the prayer would bring the cow peace and help release any lingering karma. Before leaving, he promised to return the next day to visit this remarkable animal once more. That night, Mickey could hardly sleep, the image of the sorrowful cow haunting his thoughts. He knew many people do not believe in reincarnation simply because they have never experienced something truly convincing. But for him, that moment was living proof. The next morning, the ranch owner called to say the cow had suddenly become weak. Mickey rushed back, finding the cow lying quietly in the grass, its breathing faint. He sat beside it and gently asked, "Are you all right?" The cow stirred, nodded one final time, and closed its eyes, leaving this world. Though he could never know exactly who or what the cow had been, Monk Mickey believed that everything happens for a reason. He felt the cow had completed a special chapter in its journey of rebirth and was now moving on to a new form of life. In 2005, after years of dedicated practice and many trials, Daeon Miki was officially appointed the 38th abbot of Rengakuji Temple, a historic temple quietly nestled in the mountains, built in 1661 and steeped in history. However, upon taking on this responsibility, he found the temple in serious disrepair. The moss-covered tile roof was cracked, water leaked whenever it rained, and many precious Buddha statues were damaged by time and the elements. Some had lost hands or feet, making the once sacred space feel even more lonely. From the first days in charge, Mickey knew the most urgent task was to call for the community's help in restoring the temple to its original state. After hours cleaning unused rooms, he returned to his small room behind the main hall. It was then that a strange dream came to him, a dream he would later call an unforgettable omen in his life. In the dream, Mickey saw the temple gate swing open. A familiar deity from legend entered the courtyard, Daikokuten, the god of fortune revered in Japan. Yet in the dream, Daikokuten wore tattered clothes, very different from the dignified image in statues. The deity walked up, waved, and gently said, "Farewell." Suddenly, something fell from the bag on Daikokuten's shoulder. Mickey cried out, "You dropped something!" But the god simply looked back kindly and said, "That's a gift for you, M." Mickey woke up and was stunned to find himself not in bed, but kneeling on a cushion before the Buddha statue in the main hall. Throughout his years as a monk, he had many inexplicable experiences, but never had a dream felt so real. The next morning, Mickey decided to inspect every corner of the temple, convinced the dream carried a message for him to find. Entering the main hall, his gaze settled on an old statue, Daikokuten from his dream. To his surprise, the statue's bag was torn in the exact way he'd seen in his dream. As he began restoring Rengakuji, Monk Mickey devoted himself to raising funds to repair the ancient Buddha statues. Despite tireless efforts, the donations were only enough to restore a small portion. Whenever he passed the old Daikokuten statue, he felt a heaviness, unable to repair the deity he believed had sent him a special message in his dream. One early summer morning, a young mother arrived at the temple with her son. She looked tired but kind. She told Mickey she wanted to donate her entire savings to help restore the temple. When asked why, she bowed and honestly shared, "I'm a single mother who works all the time and rarely sees my son. I want to do this to bring blessings to him." Deeply moved, Mickey thanked her but gently declined, knowing how hard-won the money must have been. But the mother insisted, hoping her donation would bring peace and luck to her son's life. In the end, touched by her sincerity, Mickey accepted the gift and quietly prayed before Daikokuten. Before she left, Mickey suggested she try her luck and buy a lottery ticket on the way home. At first, she smiled, not taking it seriously, but decided to give it a try. A few days later, she returned to the temple in tears, telling him that after following his advice, she had bought a lottery ticket and unexpectedly won. Her prize matched the exact amount she had donated. The mother confessed, "At first, I intended to give all my money and then take my son's life and my own because I was so tired of life. But thanks to your encouragement, I stopped. Now, I believe Daikokuten truly exists." The miracles didn't stop there. After winning, the mother took her son to eat at a restaurant they'd long dreamed of, but it was unexpectedly closed that day. On their way home, they passed a booth selling horse race bets. Normally, she would never try her luck at gambling, but for some reason, she bought a ticket. The result was even more amazing. She won a large prize worth 10 million yen. Thanks to those winnings, she was able to open a small shop to support herself and her son. As their life stabilized, she returned to Rengakuji, making even larger donations as thanks to Daikokuten for the miracles she had received. Word of the miracles spread rapidly among the Buddhist community, with many visiting the temple not just to pray for luck, but to see where a real miracle had happened. Just days after these miracles spread, a shopkeeper near Rengakuji who sold religious items visited Monk Mickey with an unusual story. A customer had ordered a base for a Buddha statue, but when it was delivered, it turned out to be too short. The customer had to order a new one, and the old base was left unused. Upon closer inspection, the shopkeeper thought of the old Daikokuten statue in Rengakuji's main hall. Following an inner prompting, he brought the base to the temple and offered it to Monk Mickey. Astonishingly, it fit the Daikokuten statue perfectly. Without any adjustment needed, Mickey knelt quietly before the statue, filled with gratitude and awe at such a precise coincidence, as if an invisible hand was guiding everything back into place. A few days later, a group of workers dismantling an old building near the temple unexpectedly discovered several old statues buried under thick layers of earth. They were statues of the Shichifukujin, the 7 lucky gods in Japanese folklore. Unsure what to do with them, the workers brought them all to Rengakuji and asked Monk Mickey to keep them in the sacred space. Seeing each statue carefully placed in the main hall, Mickey could not hide his emotion. He felt deeply that nothing happens by accident. In his heart, he thought perhaps Daikokuten had not returned alone, but had brought other gods as well, to watch over the temple and all those with sincere faith. It was not just these strange spiritual encounters or mysterious dreams that made Monk Diane Mickey famous. He also drew attention for his prophecies about major world events. In a public lecture in 2010, before he was widely known, Mickey delivered a warning that made many people think. He said that from 2010 onward, the world would enter a prolonged cycle of instability, and every 10 years, greater and greater upheavals would occur. According to Mickey, these disasters were not vague ideas. They have already been happening before our eyes. The first disaster he mentioned was widespread disease, which he connected to the COVID-19 pandemic, a nightmare that took millions of lives in just a few years. The second disaster, wars started by foreign powers. The third, in Mickey's words, would be social division and internal violence. He linked this to shocking political assassinations, such as the murder of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and the assassination attempt on former US President Donald Trump in 2024. For Mickey, these were clear signs of modern society being shaken by underlying conflicts. The fourth disaster involved strange celestial events and cosmic movements. According to ancient beliefs, planetary alignments, when 6 or 7 planets line up, were omens of great changes in the human world. Mickey noted these events had occurred and would continue, especially in 2025. In fact, in February 2025, an alignment of 7 planets appeared, causing many to worry about what might happen next. The fifth disaster, Mickey predicted, was unusual solar and lunar eclipses, capable of upsetting the Earth's natural balance. Recent total solar eclipses, especially in America, created widespread unease in communities. The sixth disaster stemmed from unseasonal extreme weather, such as major storms, hail, or snow in the middle of summer. Mickey saw these as clear warnings about climate change and humanity's impact on the environment. Finally, the seventh disaster was prolonged drought, leading to failed harvests and the threat of famine. Mickey feared that unless humans changed their resource use and cared for the environment, the world would soon face a major food crisis. Looking back on Mickey's prophecies since 2010, many admit that events have unfolded almost in the order he described: disease first, then war, followed by internal conflict, and then a cascade of natural anomalies, pulling the world ever deeper into a spiral of instability. In his recent lectures, Monk Diane Mickey has emphasized that 2025 will be a very special year, not just another point in history, but a major turning point with multiple important events happening simultaneously. Rare astronomical phenomena, extreme climate change, conflict among nations, and social division may all appear, making the world more unpredictable than ever. Yet, the most important message Mickey wants to share is this: the future is not set in stone. The future is shaped by what we do today. He insists that if people continue to spread hatred, destroy nature, and live in fear, disaster will only draw closer. But if each person can pause, reflect, and change for the better, even the darkest prophecies may never come to pass. The Prophecies of Zen, Master Huangbo Xiun. In Europe, Nostradamus is often revered as the symbol of prophecy, but in the East, there is a figure just as respected by later generations, a man known not only as an enlightened spiritual master, but also as a prophet who transcended his own era. This man was Zen master Huangbo Xiun. Historical records tell us he lived during China's Tang dynasty, more than a millennium ago. Huangbo was not a mystical figure in the traditional sense. He did not roam the land preaching mysterious doctrines or promising salvation. Instead, he chose a life of seclusion and meditation, believing that only by letting go of attachments could one touch the true essence of the universe. Yet his life was far from dry or disconnected from the flow of history. On the contrary, it was Huangbo's unique blend of spirituality and everyday reality that made him such a singular figure. There is a story that he once boldly slapped the future Emperor Xuanzong of Tang in the face, an act intended to teach him compassion and humility. In any culture, a monk daring to treat a ruler in such a way is extraordinary, underscoring that Huangbo was more than just a religious figure. He was a man whose vision reached far beyond the boundaries of his time. After Xuanzong ascended to the throne, he bore Huangbo no ill will. Instead, he gave the monk an honorary title, the Rude Monk, a humorous yet deeply respectful nickname. The emperor also ordered that all of Huangbo's teachings be recorded, including a collection of 14 prophetic poems. Each poem is like a fragment of history, written in classical, symbolic language that only later generations would gradually begin to decipher. In the long history of ancient China, the Ming dynasty is often remembered as one of the last great empires of the Han people, a golden age of culture, science, and diplomacy. But as with all historical glory, its radiance inevitably faded. Strangely enough, the collapse of the Ming dynasty was foretold 8 centuries earlier, in the very first of Huangbo's prophetic poems. In that poem, Huangbo spoke of the sun and moon being thrown into disorder. Coincidentally, these two celestial bodies symbolize the Ming itself. The sun and moon both appear in its imperial insignia. Their disturbance in the poem was a clear metaphor for the Ming's decline. In the dynasty's final years, this decline could be seen everywhere, from constant natural disasters and widespread famine to rampant corruption. People lost faith in the court, peasants rose in rebellion, and rival factions vied for power. In the north, the Manchu armies loomed like a dark storm at the border. To the south, Li Zicheng, a rebel leader, marched on Beijing with his own army. The inevitable soon followed. In 1644, Li Zicheng's forces captured Beijing. In that moment, the Zhongzhen emperor took his own life beneath an ancient tree, a final act of penance before his ancestors. And uncannily, this too had been foretold in Huangbo's poem. After the Ming's tragic fall, a new chapter began for China, with the rise of the Qing dynasty, founded by fierce warriors from the north. In the early days, many doubted whether the Qing would last, dismissing it as a fleeting regime unworthy of its predecessors. But everything changed with the emergence of a young emperor, Kangxi, who took the throne at just 8 years old. He became a symbol of wisdom and perseverance, leading the Qing into a 61-year golden age. Few realized that Kangxi's fate was foretold centuries earlier in the second of Huangbo's prophetic poems. There, Huangbo predicted the arrival of a youthful emperor and the formidable challenges he would face in a court rife with intrigue. Contrary to what one might expect, Kangxi's youth was anything but easy. The court was split by factions, and real power was held by regents. Foremost among them, Oboi, one of 4 trusted guardians appointed by the late emperor. For years, Kangxi was little more than a figurehead, living under Oboi's thumb. Yet, what history remembers is that the young emperor did not accept his fate. He watched, learned, and quietly plotted his own future. In 1669, at the age of 16, Kangxi acted. He invited Oboi to tea, staged everything perfectly, and waited for the right moment. When Oboi inadvertently dropped his cup, an act considered a grave insult, the emperor immediately ordered his arrest, ending Oboi's reign once and for all. From that moment, power returned to Kangxi. What is most uncanny is that every major event was foretold in Huangbo's poetry. The second poem mentioned a reign of 61 years, and history confirms that Kangxi ruled exactly that long, making him one of the longest reigning monarchs in Chinese history. In the fourth prophetic poem, Huangbo eerily described the reign of Emperor Qianlong, the sovereign who brought China to the zenith of its splendor, but who also presided at the dawn of its inevitable decline. In 1735, Qianlong took the throne, inheriting a realm stabilized by his predecessors. Through shrewdness and decisiveness, he strengthened power, expanded the empire's territory, and made the Qing a dominant force. Under Qianlong, China experienced an era of rare prosperity. Neighboring countries were wary, and the people enjoyed peace and abundance. Yet, as Huangbo had prophesied, even the greatest glory eventually fades. The poem predicted that Qianlong would rule for 60 years, a prophecy many doubted, since Qianlong publicly declared he would not outreign his grandfather, Kangxi, who had ruled for 61. True to his word, in 1795, at age 85 and after 60 years on the throne, Qianlong abdicated in favor of his son, Emperor Jiaqing. In reality, though, Qianlong retained power for another 4 years as retired emperor, continuing to rule until his death in 1799. In his later years, Qianlong grew superstitious and lax, and corruption flourished. The government stagnated, and the former luster of a once great dynasty was dimmed by a creeping darkness. After Qianlong's death, China faced a series of grave challenges, from internal rebellions to a faltering economy and mounting pressure from Western powers. After Qianlong's bright age, China entered an entirely new phase, one marked by instability and widespread uncertainty. The fifth poem of Huangbo captured this turbulent transition with the image of a red dragon, a symbol of heaviness and anxiety that foretold a less promising future. According to the Chinese calendar, 1796, the year Jiaqing officially ascended the throne, was the year of the Red Dragon, inaugurating what Huangbo had predicted would be a long era of darkness. Looking back on Jiaqing's reign, Huangbo's prophecy rings true. This was a time when the Qing dynasty faced a host of serious threats, most notably the White Lotus Rebellion. A widespread uprising with religious undertones erupted and raged for nearly a decade. Corruption ate away at every level of bureaucracy. The government grew ineffectual, and the people grew ever more disillusioned. After 25 years struggling to maintain order, Jiaqing died in 1820, leaving China with a legacy of crisis and unrest. Meanwhile, on the international stage, Britain had undergone the Industrial Revolution and was expanding its reach, while China clung to its isolationist policies, proud of past glories but blind to changing times. This complacency opened the door to catastrophe. The British, hungry for markets and resources, quietly launched a soft invasion by flooding China with opium under the guise of trade. As addiction spread, moral values eroded and social order unraveled. Faced with disaster, in 1839, during the Daoguang Emperor's reign, official Lin Zexu was sent to Guangzhou to stamp out the opium trade. He destroyed over 20,000 chests of opium in a bold act that triggered war with Britain. When the Opium War broke out in 1840, China, militarily backward, was swiftly and thoroughly defeated. In hindsight, Huangbo's prophetic verses, written in the 9th century, seem to have seen through the fate not just of a single emperor, but of an entire civilization. From the first signs of decay under Jiaqing to the inevitable collapse during Daoguang's reign, all served as warnings. When an empire refuses to change, the world will change around it, and the price is always steeper than anyone imagines. Upon reviewing the 14 prophetic poems Huangbo left behind, many have been astonished to find that 12 have come to pass, chronicling seismic shifts in history and even subtler transformations in society. Only 2 remain unsolved, and the 13th poem is said to foretell a major event in 2025, a date that now looms close. What stands out in this poem is that Huangbo does not mention any king or dynasty. Instead, he addresses all humanity. The poem is brief but haunting. In the year of the rat, the world is shaken by plague. The West will again witness the rise of one from the South. By the year of the snake, all will return to the center. In the East Asian zodiac, the year of the rat was 2020, and the year of the snake is 2025. Many shuddered to realize how accurately the line about plague matched the global pandemic and upheaval of 2020. That year, nearly every major city in the world fell eerily silent. Once bustling streets emptied as people retreated behind closed doors. A once thriving global economy faltered as supply chains broke, businesses collapsed, and millions lost their jobs. The losses weren't just statistics, but personal stories. Families mourning loved ones lost to disease. In the midst of chaos, many recalled Huangbo's poem as a distant but urgent warning that history can repeat itself in ways no one expects. Now, as 2025 approaches, the question emerges: what comes next for humanity? In the poem, Huangbo refers to a new force rising from the south and a coming change witnessed by the West. There are many interpretations. Some see this as a sign of political change, with Southern Hemisphere nations taking on a greater role in world affairs. Others interpret it socially, believing that marginalized or previously powerless communities will rise and reclaim their voice and agency. Still, others consider cultural or ideological impact, a new wave of beliefs and perspectives, or even religion, quietly transforming the very core of Western democracies in ways never imagined in our modern age. Looking at China's own history, we see a nation that has always regarded itself as the world's center, a focal point of power and culture. So when the poem speaks of everything returning to the center in the Year of the Snake, many believe Huangbo is predicting China's resurgence, whether in economic, political, or even military terms. Some theories go further, suggesting this could mean a large-scale conflict, maybe even a new world war in which China plays a pivotal role and possibly prevails. Yet, whatever the hypothesis, we cannot deny that modern history has seen many unimaginable turning points, from the sudden collapse of the Soviet Union to the 11th of September attacks, the global financial crisis of 2008, and the pandemic of 2020. The year 2025 could mark a turning point unlike any in the past, a new era's beginning or the end of an old order. What matters is that each of us recognizes, whatever the future brings, our beliefs, our choices, and our actions will shape history's course. If the world is truly changing, each person can help guide that change for the better, not just in words, but in concrete action each day. If humanity's fate really lies in our hands, let's not let it be swept away by unconsciousness, fear, or doubt. As Huangbo's final poem reminds us, the next matter must be left to those who come after. In other words, whatever tomorrow may hold, there will always be new generations who rise up to mend what was left unfinished, bringing fresh hope to all of humanity. If you found today's prophecies thought-provoking, please share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the latest videos about historical mysteries and controversial predictions. Thank you for watching.